Louisiana Dread.
So what's some other creatures that you know about that's
Oh, bruh. I was so like even when I started to be like, okay, I'm gonna stop doing more of these quick history videos in New Orleans because I said I did a lot of New Orleans and a lot of people know already about New Orleans. Gets a lot of TV time already.
season 2?
Right, sure, but I just kind of wanted to do more cryptic stuff. I found out crazy stories that I never heard of, but they were always like, oh, my grandma used to tell me this. I'm like, my fucking grandma never said this. They have one called Lupin, Lupin, and I'm sure some people probably heard about that one.
I've never heard of it.
It's like a gnome or a baby ghost. Or is it?
I think that something like that would be more creepier than seeing an 8-foot tall creature. If you would see an 8-foot tall creature in the woods, I would immediately run away. But if you saw something that's only 2 foot tall scurry across, I think I would scream my ass off.
So it's Lutin, Lutin, and it's they say it's like just this little garden gnome of a ghost that just kind of runs around, but it's ghosts of children who died before they could be baptized, and they just kind of wreak havoc on the living. But like Cajun grandmas used to say that they put powder on the ground. If you like lose your keys or all the time, it's like, oh damn, you misplaced this, your underwear, like you don't know, like, oh, what happened? You just lose this. Socks.
I don't wear underwear, but
socks. You wear socks, I hope.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Never the same.
Walking.
Never the same though. They're always like one's a different color.
Okay, that's fine. Well, you'll lose one or two. It's the lieutenant that's taking it from you. But that's what they put like powder on the ground. It's like a little gnome.
That would be scarier. That would be scarier than seeing some type of Bigfoot creature in the woods to me. If I would see something small,
it's in your house. It's in your house too.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like
that's worse.
Hanging out outside. No, they follow you.
That's violating your space.
Yeah, like going to sleep and stuff. You can't. You're gonna be scared. There's another creature.
What about a werewolf?
Yeah. Well,
I know they have that. They supposedly still have dire wolves. You ever heard of that?
And yeah, I've watched Game of Thrones.
I never watched Game of Thrones, so I don't know what that is.
You've never heard of a dire? You don't know what Game of Thrones is?
I've never watched. I don't watch too much TV.
No, I mean dire wolves are featured highly in Game of Thrones. I know what it is. Yeah.
So is that a legit thing?
Yeah, it used to be. I mean, they were prehistoric wolves. Anything that it pretty much exists today that's small, prehistorically used to be massive because they had
like
more
sloths and mammoths and
yeah. All my scientists out there are about to fucking murder me, but I don't know if it's because they had too much oxygen in the air or not enough oxygen. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of oxygen, right? So if they have a lot of oxygen, they need to breathe more.
They probably had more trees, so
get bigger. But they have all these like just massive creatures and things. It's scary, especially like off the coast and stuff, like in the Gulf and deep waters and stuff. Like what's swimming in the bayous and what's in the rivers and nothing swimming in that Mississippi River. That's scary enough as it fucking is, just flowing. But it's creepy. But they'll have this thing called the Leteche. And I never heard anything about this story, ever. But apparently, there's a lot of people in like central Louisiana and North Louisiana used to tell that to their grandkids. But it's unwanted children. Their mothers would take them as babies and just put them in the swamp and leave them.
Oh, shit.
Well, alligators would take the babies and raise them. And they would grow up feral, but raised by gators, and they'd be like these half gator, half human type hybrid. But they wouldn't be like interbreeding and stuff. But it was like they were just feral humans, and they didn't develop like reptilian features because they're living with these alligators for so long. fuck, they say it's very terrifying because they reside just deep and deep in the swamps that no one ever really goes to. And the people who have encountered them say that they have these altars and they worship crocodile like gods and stuff. So it's kind of like a cult. Reptilian cult type. But have, like I said, reptilian features and stuff. Like they've tried to blend it into their society. But there's only one legend that everyone has probably heard of before in their life. If they're from Louisiana, even if they're not from Louisiana, I'm sure people have heard the story of the Rougarou, or have at least saw the word Rougarou. I mean, it's centuries old. It's haunted people's nightmares forever. It comes from l'Acadie, Eastern Canada, the original Cajuns and Acadia. They brought the legend down here. Now, the original, it was called Lougarou with an L. Lougarou. L-O-U-P.
See, I thought I was saying it right by saying Rougarou, just rolling the R through the whole thing, but it's Lou.
It is, right. Well, over time, the L in our language, and in Cajun and Creole French, the L just morphs into an R. Mm-hmm. So it's Lougarou, Rougarou, Rougarou, and you hear that L, that roll, you're going to write it as an R.
That is scary.
Terrifying. That's what I want on screen. Yes.
He's been working out.
Right. And it is kind of lycanthropic. It is because another legend is French, because loup means wolf, and garou it means a person who shapeshifts, or a man who shapeshifts. So it's loup-garou. And there's a couple different ways that, they come into existence. Because initially, the Micmac tribe First Nations tribe in Canada, that's the legend kind of started with there as well, and kind of blended into French lore. But there is a rumor that when the Acadians were expelled, one snuck on one of the boats to get here, and
because they could shift from being a human to
yeah.
And then isn't it like whenever you kill them, they go back to their human form?
Yes, correct. They go back to human form. But I mean, there's so many ways that people have said that you can become a Rougarou. I mean, the biggest and most well-known legend that I found says that if you get bit, you can't tell anybody that you got bit by Rougarou for a whole year and a day. Yeah. So probably the biggest legend around that I've heard is that if you get bit by a Rougarou, you can't tell anyone that you got bit for a whole year and a day, or else you turn into one.
So you could survive it as long as you don't say anything. You gotta keep it on the DL.
If you survive it. I mean, encounter with a Rougarou, I mean,
they just want to rip you apart.
Yeah. They hungry.
Judging by this picture,
yeah,
he's not going to bite you and let you go.
Right. So if you get away from that, you can't tell anybody you got bit by, but for a year and a day. Also, like if you piss off a witch or a priestess or a practitioner of voodoo, ex-wife, anything, she can turn you into a Rougarou easily. Yes. That's a few ways. Another way is that if you're Catholic, you break your Lenten penance 7 years in a row. Not if you just skip Lent 7 years, I believe, but if you set a penance and you break that for 7 years in a row, Rougarou bound. I know a lot of people are shitting their pants right now. Yeah. This might be year 7 for some of you. You hear these crazy stories of like these ancient beings and these ancient figures in folklore and stuff like that from I mean, when we say centuries, okay, like New Orleans is 300 years. That's 3 centuries. When we're saying centuries in terms of Native American history, it's way older than that. You know, you're looking at like 800 years old. You know, these tribes and
some of them were thousands of years old.
And like the Plaquemine tribe, so that's the Plaquemine culture. You know, it's like medieval times. But you're thinking of like Charlemagne and all these people, or these like, you know, kings and queens going on. It's these Native American tribes down here, and they'll have things that I've never even heard before, bro. Like I'm looking at these different stories to write episodes of Louisiana Dread, to write these like episodes of horror for 20 minutes of intense terror, things solely specific to Louisiana. And you come across these stories of things called the Leteche, which is like, what? And then the first thing is like steeped deep in Native American lore. And I'm like, okay, literally what the fuck is, number one, which tribe and stuff like that? Because that's crazy, the type of thing that Leteche is. Because basically Leteche is something that exists deep in dense swamp areas, and it's known as like absolutely terrifying in terms of scale. They are these humanoid type scaly beasts, and they're kind of like children who were just left in the swamp to die, but they were taken in by alligators, and then these alligators would bring these kids deep into the swamps, and they would raise them, and they would basically turn in and start acting like alligator, like, and they'd worship alligator gods, and they would do these ritualistic sacrifices in the swamp, and they would be very feral people, and basically just abduct other babies and stuff like this, and it was just terrifying, and it's translated into different Native American lore to be the Leteche monster. What, Andre? Because I never heard that. I know you never heard those stories, because I was, living down the bayou.
Right. That's probably where all the stories of the Rougarou and all that, that's where all that was based out of,
And evolved from. Because bro, I can do a quick history video about the Rougarou, and I guarantee you I'm going to get hate from several different areas, because it's all going to be different.
Yeah, there's different stories that are all combined, and
I might as well do 5 different versions of the video to encompass everybody's likelihood. Wrong, not gonna happen. You're gonna be angry.
You're getting Kyle's version, and that's it.
Kyle's version, that's it, and that's what's the bottom line.
Rock bottom.
Speaking of rock bottom, our politics in Louisiana is ever surpassing. However, there has been a worse time. Could you imagine being a part in the southern states when this whole facade comes in of change and reconstruction, when basically everything is being shifted in a way that is losing identity and being more Americanized, and being more in a way that'll put people who, you'll see these Confederate sympathizers take a step back from actively fighting in the streets and in the fields and go into politics, and then start trying to erase different things. But people like Andre go into these places and will start finding these artifacts and finding these things at these battle sites. That's imperative to our culture. It's imperative to our history to find this kind of stuff and to display it like you're doing. And I love the fact that you do that, man. It's amazing, right, that you can bring it on.
You're digging it, like what I imagine myself doing is digging up stories that have never been told before. Mm-hmm. It's not about the objects that I dig up. They're not. I mean, they're worth a little bit, but It's the untold stories like, why was there a battle here? Why was it never recorded? Why, what happened here? Why was this place burned down? Because a lot of people don't know, but right here in Thibodaux, the Confederates would raid anything they wanted, anything they needed to keep their campaign going. And there's one story of the Battle of Lafourche Crossing. They got drunk the night before because they raided a bar room and took all the beer out of it. And I think that's where a lot of...
It was Roxas, I believe, right? It was Roxas.
Yeah, it was right by the library. A bunch of kids were partying and they just broke in. We need all the beer.
It was DJ Trash Hit last call, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna go to Pepper's real quick and get a slice."
Get a slice and then get back to it.
But they didn't get the slice, so they didn't sober up.
No, but the Confederates lost that battle because they were all hungover, and the Union knew about it.
They were also outnumbered
by a lot, especially by firepower, because there was three Union cannons that were firing on those guys.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, you're looking at artillery, and also across the bayou. Damn. Could you imagine crossing the bayou? Just, especially back then, you'd have like barges, and it would take a man to couple. I mean, a group of guys to pull that barge across the bayou. And that's what I was saying earlier. That like back in like the 1800s and stuff down the bayou, you could not get to the other side of the bayou unless you had that barge pulling. And that's how, like, in La Rose and stuff, that's where people got to church and stuff getting pulled across. But, like, the doctors were only on one side. It was only on the LA1 side. This is where the majority of people were. But if you live in the Point in Golden Meadow, you have to get yourself across. And this is, like, December of one of the worst winter storms to ever hit the state of Louisiana, and it froze the bayou. And my great-great-grandmother is going into labor. And my great-grandfather's like, holy fuck, we gotta get you across the bayou. So he puts her in a pirogue and pushes her, and the whole bayou's frozen. So he takes the paddle and he starts jamming it in front to break the ice so he can get the pirogue going. And they make it halfway before she gives birth in the middle of the Bayou Lafourche. The baby didn't make it. It died of hypothermia. But that just shows you the kind of shit that went down. And, like, what the fuck?
It's crazy that, those are the struggles that they had.
Yeah.
Because it's easy for us to just drive to McDonald's and grab something to eat, but a long time ago...
We had to pirogue up the bayou to get out McDonald's.
Even when you're pregnant.
Especially if you're pregnant. Just full of fucking... Today would be full of pirogues. Everybody's pregnant down the bayou.
Jesus
They had
Christ.
dark meat too back then.
I mean...
They had Arby's, you said?
They had dark meat.
Oh, they said dark meat. They didn't have Arby's back then. They might have.
But just imagine how difficult that would be in general. Just even if it wasn't frozen. Trying to get a pregnant woman across Bayou Lafourche in a pirogue. Just... I would have flipped it and drowned.
Oh, yeah. My little brother lives directly...
Yeah, bro, she'd be fucking screaming.
My little brother lives directly across the bayou from me. And sometimes when we don't want to go drive around, we'll just cut across with a pirogue. And it's difficult just with all the different technologies we have today, Can you imagine... crossing there with a hand-carved boat and a hand-carved paddle?
Yeah, your brother Trevor. I know him.
Trevor?
He
Who the hell is Trevor?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, the water levels were higher. You think you way more current moving, so...
Yeah,
I couldn't imagine.
There's no current
Especially
now,
if it's fast. Yeah, it's fast moving. Well, and you used to have, like, floating museums and things like that.
And that's how they got their groceries, too. There was a grocery boat that would pass up and down.
Yeah, too. And you could pull up straight.
I wish they still had that. That'd be awesome.
How functional that would be, like on the Bayou Lafourche, they would have all these
Wouldn't
things
work.
you could take. No, it was
We'd
just,
be robbed by meth addict quick.
And don't say it too loud, because Dollar General will be like,
Yeah, let's do this.
You mean I could take a Dollar General and go up and down Bayou Lafourche instead of having four
just
of them?
kill all the meth heads.
But there's like an unlimited amount of stories that have never been told about Bayou Lafourche.
Yeah, I love it. I love that we have the opportunity to tell it. It's great.
And it's just crazy to think that 100 years ago, the only way you get food is to grow it, kill it, or trap it.
Yeah, and it was Bayou Lafourche still to this day is one of the largest estuaries in South Louisiana. You know, so many species come into this bayou just for safe haven during spawning time. You know, like right now with bass, sockeye, you know, you can find them in Bayou Lafourche. Before they had the weirs, there were stories of people catching redfish all the way here in Thibodeau. You know, which is kind of insane to think because we're so far away from the Gulf. But like you say, like the smaller bayous that are in and out, like there's Bayou False. I'm not sure if y'all know it. It runs behind Nichols, behind Lowland, Burma Road and all. That's another major waterway that connects in and out of Bayou Lafourche. Even on like, you know, behind Laura Valley, in those woods and stuff like that, past the cane fields, I guess if you're heading from Raceland into Thibodeau, there's more canals back there that flow pretty good, that supply a lot of animals and stuff that you would never even see in the city part of Thibodeau or just driving through. It's just stuff out there in the middle, you know. So the waterways were important for Louisiana culture, especially through our area with Bayou Lafourche.
Oh yeah, man. It was always a huge function. Everything they did, just kind of getting to from A to B. It was faster to get there by water than it was by foot.
That was a major roadway a long time ago.
Bayou Lafourche?
Yeah.
Of course. It was the longest main street in the world. That was the nickname for it. How tight that would be if just like that was the main way you do it. You go about it. It's like a big subway system back then, but that was the equivalent of how fast it could go. It's just put everything on the bayou. Just go up and down and up and down. Now you put the back road onto it, and they're gonna build this and that and the other thing. When really they should be constructing a train system. And the beautiful thing about Louisiana is that we already have the train tracks laid.
We have to cross one just to get here.
Isn't that crazy? And all you have to do is just upgrade the tracks and put it there. But no. Why? Why can't you do it? A call for help, if anything. Like, come on. Like, everything would be so easy if you could just say, hey, imagine this. This is the best case scenario. How about this shit? So you wake up. It's like Christmas morning, but 10 times better. You wake up. Oh, my God. I'm in La Rose. Let's just say best case scenario in La Rose. Worst case, you in Golden Meadow. I'm sorry. But then there's that speed limit and all that shit. But worst case scenario, you in Golden Meadow. And you'll take a little car ride or a bus ride in a perfect world. But you get to La Rose. And you hop in a train that takes you through the Lake Salvador area to Lafitte, which will get you off at the Superdome. And you spend all day in New Orleans. And you drink and you eat and you have fun. You see history. You tip your fucking tour guides.
Carl's a tour guide if you haven't figured it out.
And you go to your Saints game, which is not on Saturday. Just kidding. You go to Baton Rouge on that train that connects you from the Superdome to Baton Rouge, which they're trying to construct now. But again, everything's all laid out. It's all done. Except that train from La Rose to Lafitte, which they were going to try to do in the 60s to make this Lafitte-La Rose highway. But I'm sure you know about that they just had to stop it because of all kind of economic
impacts. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have made coastal erosion even worse.
You think so, though? Because I mean, at the same time, that would stop a lot of the fucking erosion that was happening on the other side of it.
It would block waterway. You know, it would block. But imagine.
Again, I'm no expert.
Me neither.
As much as Andre likes to claim I am, I'm not.
No, but everything that we do to the environment here, think about just how the levee system has already impacted the coastal erosion, all across New Orleans and stuff. So putting more structure through the water, I couldn't see it as being a positive thing for, one side might benefit, the other side might take the worst.
Yeah.
I know that they were going to make the Houma Shark Cut go all the way to Lafitte at one time in the 30s. And the Houma Shark Cut was a shell road at one time, too.
Mm-hmm.
That would have opened up so much different things.
That's the Lafitte La Rose. That's where the Houma Shark Cut. That's
Right.
what it would connect to, and that drawbridge that exists. That's everybody down the bayou. You know what I'm talking about? Is the bane of the existence. Is that La Rose drawbridge that's always open. You always catch it. If you are coming from Houma on the Burglar Rose Highway, you looking at that on the Gros Bois, you can tell that it was meant to be an overpass. It was meant to just go right over, but there's one point to where it levels out, to where it goes straight across, and then it forms into a drawbridge because it was supposed to be an overpass. But the businesses around the bases of the bridge petitioned for it to be a drawbridge to make more customers go to their businesses when it's open.
Because they would lose all their customers if the bridge went over them.
Correct. Yes. However, they went out of business anyway because different things would happen, and then when they built the overpass on the other side, it kind of affected that area. So anyway, so pretty much what it's Gobert's and Missy Lanes, and then
Double D
on the other side. Correct. But other than that, like that whole side low road on the drawbridge area, that used to be full of businesses, but they since deteriorated. You could still see one of that old abandoned one. I wonder what you would find there if you go past your little mango type.
There was an old bar room there too.
Yeah, like that
Right
whole
on the
little
side
area.
of Double D.
It was popular.
A quick note that's really cool. If you do go on the new overpass, the one that doesn't open and close, you look towards New Orleans on a clear night, you could see all the lights in New Orleans from the top of that bridge.
No, you see the skyscrapers during the day too.
Yeah.
You
It has
don't
to be
even
on a
need-
clear day or a clear night.
Yeah, it's only a 15-minute boat helicopter ride at least anyway.
And it's over an hour if you in your vehicle. That's crazy how close we are to the city.
We are.
Yeah, it was just all easy access. That's why the business was so popping back then. You could just.
Right there.
That's why you see all these different things imported to Grand Isle, because these pirates had to unload their cargo on the island to bypass that checkpoint on the Mississippi River, because they weren't about to get caught with all these elephants or these zebras and all these Aztec artifacts and things they're not supposed to fucking bring in without taxes. So they unload them on the Grand Isle, put them on smaller boats, more inconspicuous, bring them up by Lafourche and go into the marshes.
How do you make an elephant
Inconspicuous?
Yes.
You put a
I
little.
think it was more like silks and spices, but
Fair enough. I'm
elephants
just
and
thinking,
zebras. Elephants and
You
zebras.
put a wig on. You put a wig on it, and really, you just
That's my
it looks. It just kind of blends in down here. It's because well, they'd be bringing them to these plantations, and they'd have these like Novalcor M, who was the highest producing plantation in Louisiana. He was right on the river, right in Vacherie. He had a whole amphitheater, Roman temple. He had a menagerie of like giraffes and elephants. And
Is that still standing, or they
lions.
tore that down?
It's all hidden. So if you driving on the river road, bro, you go in that motherfucker, and they have a school. I forget what school it was, like St. James Elementary or something. But there's a big clunk of trees. Inside is Le Petit Versailles, and that's where he lived.
And the building's still there? Some
No,
of it?
all the ruins are still there.
I gotta find this place.
They had
Yeah,
this.
sure.
There's this there's this river that goes through because he had it dug through. It's like a big canal, and there's remnants of an old fort with fake cannons in it because it was all like a big fake thing, and then they had there's a map of what it used to look like with the Roman temple. They had elephants, all kinds of stuff.
I definitely will.
Thank you for listening to Ghosts of the Coast, a DSR production.